Welcome back to today's World History series, beginning with our classical empire unit, Ancient Greece. So in order to keep this video brief and concise, we're only going to get through half of the notes today. So the beginnings of Greece, we're going to first talk about the Minoans, then the Mycenaeans, and followed by the Greek Dark Ages. So the Minoans came to a civilization status around 2000 BCE, and they lasted about 500 years. These people lived on the island of Crete, and they are named after the king Minos, whose father was Zeus. If you guys remember Greek mythology, the Minotaur, this is the region and the kingdom that story surrounds. These people are going to earn a living from trade. Now remember, this is a video. If you need to pause at any point, you have complete option to do so. We see a decline of the Minoans. We're not 100% sure why. We think it was possibly a combination of a volcanic eruption plus the Mycenaean invasion. So they're another group of people that were going to sail to the island of Crete and then begin invading. The legacy of the Minoans are the fact that they influenced Greek thinking, language, social organization, and economic pursuits. So the Mycenaeans, they are going to reign from about 1600 to 1200 BCE, and they're named after their fortress city, Mycenae. They are very warlike people who ruled the entire Greek peninsula. We're going to look at a map of ancient Greece probably on Thursday. The Mycenaeans are going to adopt many elements of Minoan culture. Pretty pictures here. So you can see the Greek peninsula and then the island of Crete down at the bottom. This is where King Minos lived, the Minotaur, and then the Mycenaeans are going to sail from the Greek peninsula, or the Ionian Peninsula is what it's actually called, to Crete. So we're going to talk about Homer now, not Homer Simpson. Homer the philosopher, the writer. So he's going to write about all these different events that are happening in Greece. Trying to topple Troy, sieging, tongue twister today, sieging the weakened civilization. He's going to write from the perspective of looking back to a glorious age. He's going to unify the values of courage and honor for the Greeks. And so the Mycenaean legacy will be this ideal of what a true hero was supposed to be. He's going to inspire the age of heroes, so Achilles, Hercules, just to name a few. Now we enter into the Greek Dark Ages, which last about 300 years, from 1100 to 800 BCE. And this is because the Dorians, another tribe, are going to invade, and they don't have a very clear writing system. That's not their focus, so nothing is really going to be written down during this time. That's why it's called the Dark Ages. We see a loss of trade. We do see an increase in poverty, a loss of skills, so woodworking, carpentry, blacksmithing, all that stuff. And also at this time, there's no central power, so everybody's basically scattered around the peninsula. They are, though, going to be able to rise out of darkness, defeating and expelling the Dorians. And this is when we see the beginning of the city-state, also known as a polis. It emerges around 800 BCE, and they all emerge with a very distinctive common culture. So language, religious practices, same thing. They're going to claim the same mythical parent of Helen, and there's three big tribes that are going to develop: the Ionians, the Aeolians, and then, as I previously mentioned, the Dorians. So the city-state, or the polis, will become the center focus of Greek life. They're each independently run. They have their own government, their own law codes, courts, and army. Each polis will have a guardian deity, or a guardian god, that they claim to. So for Sparta, for example, they're going to have a very strong connection to the god of war, Ares. So they'll have a main temple for that god, and then an agora, which is a marketplace. Even though they have a specific deity, they are going to believe in all of the Greek gods, and they do believe that Zeus was the head of the gods, or the king. At this point, they're going to develop over 250 different city-states. And so these colonies, they're gonna develop. So what happens is Sparta decides we need more resources, we need more grain, whatever the case may be. So they send out a search party in search of land and resources. So the search party goes out and they find a spot and they decide, okay, we're going to create a colony here. So that colony becomes its own city-state. However, it still has that connection to the quote-unquote mother city, or Sparta. So they'll trade back and forth between each other, but people are now loyal to their new colony if they physically move there. This entire slide, the impact of geography, is a comp and pre-comp topic. So please, please, please highlight, underline. The main things you need to focus here are the fact that because the Ionian Peninsula is dominated by mountains, it forced the Greeks to look outward to meet their needs, meaning they couldn't really farm. Looking at this map here, it's very difficult to farm when you're surrounded by a bunch of mountains, right? So what they had to do was they looked outward. They developed a very strong maritime tradition. That means that they were able to sail far distances, and they were very good at it. So the big thing to take away is because of Greece's geography of being mountainous, they had to develop maritime trade, sailing outward. So as I mentioned, over 250 different city-states are going to be developing. They're going to develop these colonies along the Mediterranean Sea and the Black Sea. What's going to happen is these colonies are going to supply a large amount of grain to the mainland. Because if you remember from the previous slide, the geography of the Ionian Peninsula was not conducive, or it wasn't good for farming. This again creates a very close tie to the mainland. Looking at this map, we'll revisit this on Thursday again when we look at the map in greater detail. Their main export will be wine and olive oil. So some check for understanding questions. Greek history was influenced by Greece's mountains and seacoast. You should be writing this down in your notes. You don't write the letter, you should be writing the full answer, because there's no guarantee I'll keep the same setup for the test or quiz. The teachings of Homer included the values of courage, honor, and excellence. By 750 BCE, the blank, or city-state, became the central focus of Greek life. The correct answer is polis. What impact did the Aegean geography have on its people? This was a comp topic, remember? They looked outward to meet their needs. The era following the collapse of the Mycenaean culture in the Aegean around 1200 BCE is called the Dark Ages. Now, this is also a comp and pre-comp topic. So in your notes, I'd like you to make a reference that Hellenistic refers to Greek civilization, Greek culture. You'll see this again when we get to Alexander the Great, and he spread Hellenism, or Greek culture. 2 to 3 million people are going to participate in this Greek civilization culture. They're going to share a common language, common gods, and the colonies are going to increase the trade as well as spreading of this culture. And then once Alexander the Great becomes an emperor, and he continues to spread or expand his empire, I should say, he's going to spread Hellenism, because even though he's Macedonian, his father and mother had him tutored by Greeks. So again, this idea of Hellenism incorporates this shared idea. They're going to have dialects of the same Greek language. So just like we have different dialects of English in the United States, we're going to see the same thing with the Greek language. And there might be a couple words that are pronounced differently or spelled differently, but for the most part, the language is it's the same no matter where you go. They honored the same gods. They had very similar artistic styles, and they had a very competitive spirit. We see this with the development of the Olympic Games. So some basic characteristics of a Greek city-state or polis. People of a city had a very common identity, and all citizens, which at this time were just men over the age of 18 that were born in the city-state, they had a very strong connection to their homeland. They fiercely were loyal to their city-state, and they viewed basically every other city-state as an enemy. Women, slaves, and foreign-born, unfortunately, had no political rights and no legal rights. They were not considered citizens at all, and therefore did not have protection under the law. There was some diversity, though. So originally, each city-state had some sort of a monarchy or a tyranny, where a lord or particular individual had all the power. typically these were not great people. They didn't manage well, and so they were not liked. This led to two main forms of government: an oligarchy, which is ruled by a small group of men, or direct democracy, which is ruled by the people, with the exception, again, of women. Women, foreign-born, and slaves were not considered, quote-unquote, people in that city-state, so they did not have a right to participate in the government. The United States, our founding fathers, when we were becoming a country, they took some ideas from Greece and from Rome and created a democratic republic, which is what we have today. And this is where we're going to stop today with new military tactics. So instead of having a few heavily armed men riding into battle on chariots, they're going to develop the idea of a hoplite, which is the foot soldier. These foot soldiers were much more valuable than cavalry. So they would develop these phalanxes, these rows of soldiers using their shields to create a wall. And then it took quite strict cooperation. So everyone would be lined up in unison, marching, and it would be like a literal walking wall that would shield the soldiers behind them. So they had great advancements in the military. As I mentioned, this is where we're going to stop today. So we'll pick up on ancient Greece tomorrow. Thank you. Hope you guys are doing well. Remember, it's a video, so if you missed anything I went too quickly, go back, rewatch it, take your notes again. All right, talk to you guys later.